watch that, Bill.
They were terrorists. We come and kill everyone. There's like 4 or 5 people.
All right, it's 9 o'clock. I'll join me for the pledge of allegiance.
Hey guys, we're not live yet. It's having some issues. Oh, there it goes. Never mind.
Okay, thanks. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Should we wait?
No.
He said live, wasn't it?
We live yet, Ben?
Yeah, I was just having some issues there starting, but you're good now.
You.
All right, we're looking for an approval of the agenda. I'm going to make the recommendation. We move item number 2 beyond or past item number 4, and we're going to consolidate 3 and 4 and do it all at once.
I'll make a motion to approve that, change the agenda and then approve the agenda.
I'll second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The minutes from January 3rd.
They were very lengthy. I read them, they appear to be accurate, so I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second that motion.
We have
And
a-
they were long.
Good job, Court.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, item number 1 is Breda Daycare fiscal year 23 funding request.
Lisa. Is that who that is?
No, we're looking for, is it Haley? Haley.
Yeah. Kim, who's out there in the hall? On the other side of the pill drop off?
Okay.
Yeah. that's who it was.
Oh, actually.
Yeah. She was, I got her.
I didn't even look over that way.
You are.
Good morning, Haley.
Stare at me like, am I in the right place?
Yep, you're good.
Where do you want me to sit?
Anywhere you'd like.
I don't bite.
Hot seat right there.
Yep.
You look a little too classy to be just a prisoner.
Well, I have to go to a bank.
I saw you sitting there.
Oh, you mean where I was sitting? Okay, you guys all have copies of everything I sent in. Perfect. Okay, so I am here on behalf of the Breda Daycare Center. And as far as the application that we had sent in earlier regarding the Supervisors grant, kind of brief overview of kind of what's happened since we've last talked beginning of 2020 or 2021. We shortly after we had met with you guys, we found out that we got a pretty large grant from the state, specifically to put an addition on the daycare center. So we got that done. So when you're actually looking, if you flip back, and I tried to footnote some of the financials, so that very back, the footnotes, if you guys haven't gotten a chance to read that, that is pretty detailed in regards to how our P&Ls look a little bit differently from 2020 to 2021. But the biggest project that we have going on right now, actually it's finished. In 2021, we were granted a childcare challenge grant. We got to put an 18 by 24 addition onto the daycare center in the infant room. That will allow us to take our capacity. In the application, you will see that I have written here that we had 25 kids. In number 5, we had 25 kids at the center when I filled out this application. We now have, as of yesterday, we got our certificate to take up to 42 children. So now with that being said, primarily why I'm here asking for hopefully some grant money is we have, in order, there's state ratios. So we can take those children, but we have to have people there, we have to be able to hire, we have to have the staff. And as you all know, it's hard to come by right now. We're very, very lucky. We did actually get someone hired last Monday. I don't know, God was on our side in this situation. So we're going to be able to take in the infant room with just one additional staff member, we can take 4 more kids right now. If we get another one hired, then we can take another 4, so that'd be a total of 8. So primarily what we're asking for funding for is the payroll costs. That room isn't going to be completely profitable for at least, I'm going to say on the minimum a year. The reason being is that with ratios, so if we take up to say roughly 13, 14, 15, anywhere around there in the infant room, I have to be able to push them out as they get older from the toddler room to the preschool room. And so we're in the stages of asking for another childcare challenge grant. We don't know if we've gotten that or not, but those funds are specifically for the construction of another potential addition to the preschool room that would allow us to take, so we could easily funnel the kids throughout the whole center, from the infant room to the toddler room to the preschool room, and then they would go to either the Kemper or Carroll school district. So in order for us to be able to take on all those additional children, we need to be able to get this addition on the preschool room to make them all go through the center. That being said, we still have those upfront payroll costs as we have applications out. We're going to hire them, even if, if that at that point it makes us overstaffed, which then leads us into the operational challenges. So a couple things I do want to point out to you. If you actually look at the P&L for this year, kind of was at a weird point in time where we were at with the construction. So we began construction of the addition, I believe on the 13th of September, and then it did get finished by the 10th of December. So what we ended up doing is we not only did we put an 18 by 24 addition onto the center, we also had to redo for state purposes. They wanted us to redo our storm shelter. So we did a semi remodel inside of the building as well. And all of the construction was all finished on the 10th of December. And then I believe on the 17th or the 18th, we got final approval from the state and the fire marshal. That room could be up and running. So it is in full force right now. We just, are kind of in those middle stages of getting staff. Then we have, I think right now we have 13 kids on the waiting list to get into that center. So there's definitely a demand for it. We just need to be able to keep it profitable. And a huge thing to point out too is that, okay, so there's 139,000 positive on the 2021. Right now, as of year end, that is positive 3,000. So we have spent all of those grant funds, if that makes sense. Kind of where I knew from when I prepared this application to where I'd be sitting when I got a chance to talk to you, it would look a lot different. So needless to say, as all of you probably know, if you've ever been in a construction situation, you tend to overspend once in a while. So, and things just, the tricky part with the addition was the fact that when we applied for the grant and we got all the bids, it was like 3 or 4 months before all the construction and lumber skyrocketed. So unfortunately, I shouldn't say that because we were lucky enough to get the state grant the way that it was, because if it wasn't for funding like that, a $91,000 grant, there's no way we'd ever be able to put an addition on that center. So that's a couple of very important things. So on the 2022 budget, a couple things to point out: parent tuition, that $185,000 does have an additional projected $25,000 in there, just based on if we get the chance to get some new babies in there. Hopefully there's an additional program income of about $20,000 to $25,000 in infant care, just depending on if we get this addition to the preschool room done and that the ratios will work out. And then obviously along with that comes the payroll and the wages. I will say that it has become very hard to maintain staff because, and I'll just be real honest with you guys, but when Walmart or a McDonald's is offering a wage of $15, we need to be able to retain our employees. And I'm sure you all understand that it's we have to offer the competitive wage so they don't leave, and we want them to be loyal to the daycare center. And at the same time, throughout all of this COVID, nightmare, we've never once charged a parent, which is very different from some of the surrounding centers, that we've never once charged a parent if they were kicked out for COVID-19 reasons. We've never charged them. We've continued to always pay our staff. They've always been on full employment. They've never, other than a few, I think maybe less than 5 times, has anybody had to claim unemployment at the daycare center. So I think that's awesome. And we haven't raised our rates at the daycare center for 2 years. So that's something that we kind of pride ourselves in, is childcare is, if you've done any research on, there's a reason that the governor set up a childcare task force, is because 1, we're in huge need of childcare, and 2, it is astronomically expensive. So I completely believe in trying to make affordable daycare. And if that means, researching grants or researching fundraising opportunities or doing those types of things to make it so young moms, especially, young moms want to be in the workforce, but it doesn't make sense for them to be in the workforce, if childcare costs 5 times what they're making. So, you all understand that, but we just want to make it affordable, and we want to make it a nice place. And also, we're a licensed daycare that has a preschool. There's not many of those around too. So, do you guys have any questions for me as far as, I know this is a little different than our requests in previous years as far as, just a material item, and payroll is still a material item, but right now, just if I was to be honest with you, that is going to be our biggest issue, is especially when but we're hiring people, and qualified people, hiring them to work at the daycare center, but it obviously costs more than what it did. Just the cost of living is higher. So I can foresee in the next year, we're going to have that issue.
This money that you're requesting, I've heard you say it a couple of times here, and it makes me just a little nervous. I don't want it to be tied to payroll.
Okay.
And there's a reason for that.
Sure. I
don't want to be on the hook for any possibility of an angle for unemployment insurance.
Oh, like if they would, sure.
The money given to you is yours to use, not.
Yep.
I don't want to say that here's money for payroll, because that may tie us
And
to
there's-
the payroll.
and you could look at this 2 different ways. With the addition to, if we end up taking, well, right now, okay, so since we hired another gal yesterday, or as of the 3rd, we're going to have to buy 4 more cribs. So there's plenty of angles that I can go.
Yes.
And I could, if I want to just be honest with you, there's a list of 10 things that right now,
Got it.
as we're having fun. So I could look at you and I could say, okay, so the payroll shortage, I'll just use my fundraising money. Regardless, we're at the same spot,
Right. Exactly.
but I respect 100% what you're
just-
saying.
Yeah, I just don't want to tie
Mhm.
us to more.
Yep.
And it's not just you guys too. We've said that to countless people too.
Oh, absolutely. Actually, I never really thought about it.
Yeah.
Didn't really ever think about
Sometimes there's unintended consequences that come with some of this. Now, whether it would stand up in court, don't have any idea.
yeah,
But if I
No.
can break that tie now, I'll break it.
Yep, absolutely. No, there's plenty of, there's gonna be at least, we have 1 extra crib, and they're about $785 a piece. So we would need to buy at least 5 more potentially. And then also, so we actually used part of the supervisor funding last year to do the hardwood flooring. So with that, we will have to put some, especially in the infant room, we're gonna have to put some sort of matting down on, so we have like a list of we always keep a wish list at the daycare center of just things like potentially if we have a really good Easter raffle or something like that, so there's definitely funding, and I put that in here too. It's not just the payroll. So
Okay.
if that kind of deters you from one way or the other. It's not
No.
just the payroll.
No, I just want to make it clear.
Yes, absolutely.
Does anybody else have any more questions? Nope. Obviously, we don't make a decision today.
Yeah,
We'll
no,
work that
you're
in our
fine.
budget, but we do appreciate you coming and taking the
Absolutely.
time.
Okay, I'm on to my next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes, of course.
All right, we are going to move to item now will be fiscal year 23 Board of Supervisor salaries, attorney, treasurer, sheriff, recorder, and auditor salaries. I would say everybody has received the recommendation letter from the compensation board. Board of Supervisors approved the recommended. We received the letter from the compensation board. The percentages would be 28 for the county sheriff, 22 for the auditor, 12 for treasurer, 18 for recorder. 20% for the county attorney and 12% raise for the supervisors. And the treasurer. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to open this up to discussion, and if you guys want to go per department.
Really doesn't do a good do part.
I think
do
we
them
need-
all equal.
Yeah, we just have to talk about the sheriff's salary, recommended salary.
I will say again, this year our hands are kind of tied with the compensation board. I'm not overly happy with the process, but that is what we have to do. That is the process we have to follow. Don't everybody jump up at once.
Well, I think we all love this subject over the years. Well, I'll start. I guess where I'm looking is in that 50, giving them 50% of what was recommended from the comp board. And I'm basing that on because of the way the thing is set up. At least the low end will be close to COLA. Now, we haven't always followed COLA, but with that, I'm thinking we have always wanted to get the sheriff up higher than what the county or the Carroll police chief is. And this is one way we can get that salary above that. I think, you know, it's hard to make these big jumps all at one time. I think we have to use a little bit of responsibility and common sense with it. And that's where I'm leaning at doing the 50%. And I would leave them all at that same level. That's where I'm at.
Is that a motion?
Well, I thought was any other
We
discussion.
can make a motion, then we can discuss.
Okay, I'll make a motion to that effect.
I'll second that motion.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I think for the past several years, we've been trying to get the sheriff and the city of Carroll closer together. 1% here, 2% here. If you look back at history, there's been some lump sums. The sheriff seems to always be trying to, or the compensation board is trying to bridge that gap. Now, the comparable, because of Senate File 342, says the comparable isn't the county seat police chief. So that's changed. And that's where the 28% came from. That would put the sheriff in the ballpark of the comparables required by law for the compensation board to set. We don't have to follow the compensation board. But it seems like the sheriff's salary has been kicked around, which says kicking the can down the road. I think we have to at least give the sheriff 21%. 28 is the recommended. We can't decide, the compensation board, who are taxpayers, decided the percentage for all elected officials, including us, it was unanimous when they talked about the sheriff, a 7-0 vote for the 28%. Everybody agreed on that. Then the rest, some of the offices, they really didn't even discuss. So where they got the numbers, I'm not sure. But I think we need to talk about one person, the compensation board, put us in this position. I don't think we can help it. I think we would be doing an injustice of getting the sheriff comparable to where the state is recommending if we want less than 21%.
Well, I'm gonna lean with Scott here a little bit. Back to blue law is a law, much like 55-mile-an-hour going down the road is a law. I don't like it, but it's a law. I know that I've talked to the legislators and they said, well, it just says shall, and that doesn't tie you to it. But why was it placed there? There was a reason why it was placed there. It was a reason why it made that out of committee and it made it to the floor and it was voted on. The balance that we're tasked to do here is to balance the citizens of the county. Can they afford these increases? Can they not afford these increases? We also all know that the COLA was 5.9. Inflation is quite high right now, which means your dollar doesn't buy as much as it used to. But we're still tasked with this issue. I don't know what percentage the 21% is, Scott. Is that 3/4, about approximately 3/4
A 25% reduction from what the comp board.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so
And I don't even like that.
whether I like it or not, the law tells me what I kind of do, insinuates what I should do.
Yeah, I think 75%, or I shouldn't say percent. I think 21% raise for the sheriff is the minimum that the board, I think in the future, we need realistic recommendations from the comp board instead of trying to get somebody closer. And it's not a game of how much do we cut it by. We need to get real recommendations from them. And I think by cutting, we're doing the comp board an injustice. They're all tax-paying citizens. They all are property owners in Carroll County. And this is an unusual year because the state has weighed in on the thought process of where the county sheriff, no matter who it is, we can't have both ways where we want the best person for the least amount of money. I think we need to pay them. And I think that's what the state's saying.
That, and I think you're right. I think that's what they're implying is you need to compensate these people for the job that they do. Now, through some of the conversations, I can tell you that in the auditor side, she is not bound by code to do the budget. She's been willing to do it. She does a great job with the budget. So we probably could step outside of the realm and pay her separately for that.
Leave that come to the comp board.
I understand that, but that could be a recommendation that comes out of the comp board. So by maybe adding these to her duties, we can beat that to the punch. And that makes her more budget friendly for the compensation she would have to have. Also, the county attorney doing negotiations for us, doing handbook work for us. That would make us more budget friendly because we outsource all of those. If he's willing to do that, that would, like I said, makes us a little more budget friendly to what we're about to embark today. So I see there's some things here that to help with. I also think that these are probably percentages and numbers given that compare to the outside world. I've heard the argument on IPERS I can also tell you that private industries have 401ks that are just as good, if not maybe a little bit better, depending on which business you're working for. So there's value in IPERS. There's also value in the private workforce getting 401k money. So if we're going to try to match the outside world and get the sheriff where the city has already previously set wages for librarians and clerks and chief of police that's been higher than our personnel for a long period of time. So ever since I've been on the board, there's a catch-up period. And I think we have
getting there.
we have come to the catch-up period. Do I like it? No, but you know what? Sometimes you have to take the facts that are laying out in front of you and you have to deal with it. And I think that's where I'm at. I know it's not very unpopular with a lot of people, and it's popular with quite a few people also. So I'm leaning more towards Scott's version here. So that's my 2 cents worth.
Well, I'll just say that I seconded that motion simply because I think that's a fair and equitable place to be. The lowest recommendations on the board, from the compensation board was 12% for the treasurer and the supervisors, and the 50% reduces that to COLA. And I think that's a very good place that we should end up. I think that's the good starting point. You know, when the compensation board makes these recommendations, and we accepted receipt of that, and I also accepted receipt of an increase in the county attorney of 20%. And, you know, I mean, we're getting the county attorney to a point where, you know, maybe we should consider it being a full-time position, you know. I think the more you move up that ladder and more increases you make, does that become a point of discussion? I just think that 50% is a good place to be. I think that's going to be more acceptable to a larger population of the Carroll County taxpayer. And so that's why I seconded that motion.
You know, we're all elected. Every single one of us. We stepped up to do a civic duty and we're elected, and we need to be fiscally responsible. But we also need to maintain a good staff and want to attract good staff. At 50%, what you two are recommending for the sheriff, that'd be a $13,070 and 68-cent increase. The attorney would be just shy of 8,000. The auditor, I mean, you guys have this spreadsheet, right?
Yep.
I computed it many different ways. I did it 38%, 60% of the comp board asking, and then I also did the 100%. You know, I have a really hard time swallowing the 100%. I don't think we'd be doing justice to the public by doing that route. I can't. I'm struggling just with these numbers because it's a lot of money. I mean, and we're dealing with more than just elected officials here. We're dealing with the private sector. There is a trickle effect that happens what we do in this room today. You know, is the private industry giving out $13,000 raise this year? I don't think so. But I also respect that our sheriff has been underpaid. I spent a lot of time the last week looking through trying, and it's so hard to do comparables because how do you know? He's overseeing a jail, a comm center. He's got a lot more responsibilities than, for instance, the sheriff in Washington. just like the supervisors in Washington, they have 5 supervisors. In the state of Iowa, we are actually grossly underpaid. If you look at the
You're
comparables.
talking Washington County?
Mhm. But, and that was just instance for the sheriff, but as far as their supervisors there, they make more than us, but they also have the hours, they have a supervisor at the courthouse every day for 2 hours. So you can't compare that because we don't do that, but then we're here, we don't have set hours, but we're here a lot. So it's really hard to do comparables across the state. And I respect all of our employees. I appreciate everything they do for us and the elected officials. I think they work really hard. I think we're very blessed in Carroll County. But the comp board put us in a predicament this year. And I wish they would have done, like Scott said, I wish they would have done reasonable, palatable recommendations. This is a tough year.
I always think it's difficult to compare
Mhm.
Carroll County with any other county, because I don't know if anybody's like Carroll County. You know, Washington County, for years, Gene, I mean, they were giving, 5 years ago, they were giving 10 and 15% raises. You are gonna get up to that point. You know, they also have a casino, a very successful casino right there. So they're pretty flush with cash. I don't know, we got Cass County down down south here with Atlantic, bordering it borders the interstate. And the Cass County Sheriff's Department apprehended an individual here last week or the week before that was traveling across the country, you know, yeah, prepared and loaded. So they take on an extra burden that we don't have here. Hamilton County is a little bit the same way, and I struggle with that with Region 5 Hazmat, in that Hamilton County is bordered by the interstate and they're bordered by Highway 20. They get a lot more traffic. There's going to be more hazardous incidents going on there as far as Region 5 Hazmat, but there's also going to be a lot of other criminal activity on those roads that we don't have here. So I think it's really difficult to compare counties. And that's, you know, and I think in good faith, the legislature was going to try to do that, but I think that's a difficult thing to do.
Well, and I think, you know, getting back to blue, that law does address the comp board, it doesn't address us. And, you know, as far as the sheriff, yeah, I'll be the first to admit, he should get paid more than what the police chief in Carroll does. By doing it at 50%, that will bring him above what police chief is right now. About, I think it was the information I was given was about $6,000 if we go 50%. And I agree with everybody. The town board dealt with a bad deck of cards this year. I think what we should have did, and yet at the same time, I gotta give them credit. They spent more time at this time, especially one department doing some investigation. They spent more time doing their deliberations this year. I gotta give them credit for that. But at the same time, with the deck of cards they dealt us, I think what I would recommend from this point on, that we do not accept the letter and let them go back to work again. Because I think they did put us in a bad predicament.
Well, I think, no, I can't blame the comp board on this one. I gotta blame the legislatures on this one. They set the tone.
Well, I blame both.
They were doing exactly as they were told. That was my opinion of it. Did I agree with it? No, I don't like it, but they did exactly what they were told to do.
Yeah.
So I can't blame them. Now, once they got past the sheriff, things got a little squirrely after that, but I think that happens when you see a large number there. And they have a tendency to follow along. I think we should be over 50%, and I'm gonna lean forward closer to Scott.
Well, I like I said, I'm still at 50%. Because this is, and Stephanie kind of addressed that a little bit. That was another thing I was going to address, is this does have a trickle down effect.
Oh,
I mean, and we've got other people we need to worry about too.
Absolutely.
And that's why I
I
think,
don't think that we can go out and give exuberant wages and justify it to the taxpayers and to the other industries in town.
and that's why I think 50% is the number, simply because of the lower end of the compensation board's recommendation puts those individuals at COLA.
And I agree with, I don't agree with all these figures. I mean, and you know where I'm at with that direction, some of this.
You know, if you go to, let me see if I can get back to that again. If you go to what you're recommending, I mean, that gives, you know, the supervisors 9%. That gives the, you know, the other lowest one that was,
That'd be 6.
It'd be 6.
He's recommending 50%.
no, I'm talking 70, I'm talking your recommendation.
Oh,
I didn't make a recommendation.
Well, what you're leaning to,
Yes.
at the 75%, you know, that
But
puts.
if you go back to the comp board, they didn't even discuss supervisors. I don't know where they
Well,
came up
I'm
with
not-
12%.
Okay, so then I'm talking to treasurer.
Okay.
That 9%. Is that what, you know, I'm not criticizing the treasurer by any means, but, you know, I mean, that's the recommendation that we're given by the compensation board. And, you know, if we lower it by that much, that's our bottom. Is that the bottom for everyone in the courthouse? Is that the bottom? Is that where the union's gonna go? You know, I mean, we haven't negotiated that yet, and they intentionally put it off. Their negotiations,
Waiting
you
for
know,
today.
waiting for today.
Yeah.
And I bet if you
And
go,
we've got to move on a budget.
I bet if you go to 9%, that's the expectations.
And I will say this, I mean, we've got good, I have nothing, you know, we've got good staff and elected officials. I'm not saying that, but I think we have to look at what is in the best interest of, we're elected by the general public, and we got to look at their best interest too. And I will understand, things are good now, and that's why I'm at 50%, because I feel these are pretty good raises.
Yeah, I would agree that I think the county's in real good shape right now. I mean, I think that, yeah, kind of stretching out on a limb here, and no matter what we come up with, whether it's what's been proposed or anything else higher than that, we could probably handle that. But I just don't think it's right. I'm concerned about the bottom end of this, not so much the top end, and where we're going to put that bottom end. If we're going to put it at 9%, or if you're going to put it at 6%, I think 6% is where we want to be.
And it would be different if we could act on these individually separate, but we can't.
And that, I told you that in the conversation we've had, do you want to work it left to right, or you want to work it right to left? There's two different answers. And I've poured over this all weekend, and there's nothing that jumps out and says, this is the right answer. Nothing to me.
Well, I don't think whatever we do, we're gonna come out a winner on this. I said that right away.
No.
And as I've told a lot of people, this is the worst part I hate about this job.
any more discussion? All right, there's been a motion and a second. I'm gonna call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye for a 50% of the compensation recommendation.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion denied. I'm gonna make a motion
60%.
that we do 60% of the compensation board, which would make it, so COLA is at 5.9 and inflation's at like 8.09 as of right now. So that would give it just above COLA for the treasurer at 7.2. It gets the sheriff up there to 16.8, the attorney at 12, the auditor at 13.2. And we'll discuss, it puts the supervisors at 7.2, but I'm willing to go even lower for the supervisors, which we are able to do that with the supervisors. We can go less than what we recommend for everybody else. That's my motion.
That's 60%.
60% of the recommendation.
I'll second that.
There's been a motion and a second. Any more discussion?
I still can't support it. We don't know who's gonna be on the compensation board next year. We don't know who's gonna be on this board next year. And we're kicking the can down the sheriff's battle. Again, to me, we're voting on one number, and that is the comp board, what they gave us for the sheriff. The comparables they gave us were very justified. It got the attention of the people and the governor in Des Moines. It was signed, and yeah, we're prolonging the inevitable if we end up with the sheriff being at 16.8 instead of being at least 21. So that's my thoughts.
So you said 60%?
Of the recommendation of the comp board. So that would be sheriff at 16.8, attorney at 12, auditor at 13.2, treasurer at 7.2, recorder at 10.8, and supervisors at 7.2.
Let's see it, sir.
I can't seem to do that.
This will show you 60%. And actually, can I add to that motion? I'd like to see the supervisors go down to 6%.
So we need to separate the supervisors out.
So you're recommending the supervisors 50%?
So 7.2 is the level. I don't know, we took 0 last year. I'm not willing to do that again this year. I mean, 35 hours a week isn't cutting it for me. I mean, there are some weeks that are less, but I just feel like I'm putting in a lot more time than I just feel that if we're gonna do it for the treasurer, I think we have to be right in there with it.
So was the motion amended or not? She had the first.
I had a
and the
motion and
second,
then
but
you
you don't agree
seconded.
with her amendment, so.
But you don't agree with.
I
the-
don't agree with
Okay.
that.
So are you gonna withdraw that, or what are we gonna do here?
The motion's still out there. You withdraw your second.
I withdraw a second.
We're in order for a second. If not, motion dies. And the motion dies.
Well, I will tell you, the calls that I got this last week about this have been actually lower than what Gene had and made the motion on. I mean, that's what I got.
I had a lot of them.
Yeah, I mean,
I've had both sides.
I'm not saying that's right.
I'm not saying that's right, but I mean, I'm just saying that's what I'm hearing. I mean,
I'm about 50%. I've heard both sides. Now, I know it's gonna take some type of compromise. But I believe Scott's right. We have to base it off of the sheriff's salary, and we have to base it off the information they're given. The low end is whatever it falls, it falls. I don't like it, but I think that's the hand we're dealt with because that's the way the compensation board works. Yeah, remember that all those people on that compensation board were also working for each individual partner. But they're also taxpayers. They didn't quiver at these numbers. So,
It was unanimous on the sheriff. It was a 5-2 vote on the remainder of us,
correct.
of every other elected official other than the sheriff.
Yeah.
It's a 7-0 vote.
So that has some weight and value to me too. There are several people sitting around that table.
Listening closely.
Mhm.
Well, we're in order for a motion. If anybody would like to make a motion.
That'd probably be the only one.
I feel like I'm on an island, but yeah. I'll make a motion that the Carroll County Sheriff's raise be 21%.
What percent reduction is that, 25?
Yes.
25%.
Thank you.
I can read the numbers if you want.
No,
but
that-
the
that's
other
okay.
I
options-
do want to see your spreadsheet.
See the percentage.
I'm not, I can't get my Excel.
You said it's 75%?
That's-
Hey guys, there's 2 comments there for you. There's a chat on the projector. If you can read that. If not, let me know.
Yeah, I'd rather.
Jean Lenwig, I would do this by looking at the lowest paid deputy, be sure that they have a 3 to 4% and go from there. This would assure that the lowest paid person would get raises similar to the general public, and their heads of departments would get a greater amount.
Your motion is 75%.
Yes.
That
Or
would-
the way I would refer to it is sheriff's salary, his new fiscal year 23 salary be a 21% raise.
And that would do.
Everybody else would be according.
Exactly. So I'm gonna trust that spreadsheet down to the 100th of a percent.
I don't know, it's gonna be pretty hard to explain to everybody else why they don't deserve 9%.
These are the elected officials.
Pardon me?
These are the elected officials.
I know,
we're
but
talking
you have deputies and then you have clerks right next to them. You know,
Oh, you mean giving the deputy a 9% increase and the clerk only getting, let's just hypothetically say 6,
yeah,
or whatever we decide with.
I mean, that's,
They don't do the same job would be my argument.
That responsibility translates into more money.
But I understand what you're saying.
I'm not talking specifically about them, and I'm using that as an example, I guess.
I don't like the hand we were dealt. I don't think any of us do. I think
I mean, are we gonna give, Zach and Dalton and Ben, 6% when everybody else gets 9%?
again, these are elected officials. These were
I
recommended
understand.
to us.
But,
What I'm
but those,
basing it on
but
was a
but those are pretty
unanimous.
dependable individuals as well,
Absolutely.
and there's always feelings.
So we want to retain the people we have. The hand we were
I'm not
dealt.
saying that we're not gonna give them 9%, but I'm guessing that's probably what we could be negotiating here shortly.
There's no second. That's just a recommendation. There's a motion.
There's been a motion for a recommendation of 75% of the count board's recommendation. Is there a second?
Jean has another comment about plugging the 3% raise for the deputies into the worksheet and go from there.
It's not set up that way.
Yeah, it's not set up that way.
Yeah, but 3% is not, each deputy isn't the same. Some are at 65%, some are at 85%.
They're all over the board,
They're all
actually.
over the board.
And it's my understanding it would be up to the elected official as to what percentage those deputies get within their
Correct.
budget. So
Correct.
I don't know that that really factors into this, but it's part of it, but
All right, so there's been a motion, lack of a second, motion dies. I think we all agree this is a very hard,
It is.
it's a very hard.
Told you this from the beginning.
Well, and this is the first year that I can recall, Gene, you probably have more experience with this, but where the compensation board went. Had a recommendation for each one that was basically almost different.
No, this isn't the first time I've seen it already, and that's the problem with this. I remember the year when they had like one was 5, one was 4, and then the other one had 2. When the board went and cut them all in half, well, that meant the one that got the 2 only got a 1%. And I'm sorry to say, but that person is the one that deserved more of the raise than the rest of it.
I think
Got the short end of the stick.
we need to go back to the unanimous decision on the 28% to get the sheriff where he is. So then the comp board lumped everybody else together without really talking about the treasurer, the recorder, or the supervisors, other than the chair perhaps getting $1,000. And I think their assumption, which we need to get away from, is that the board's gonna chop it in half. We need to do this one time, realistically, get it over with, and then hopefully the compensation board gives us a comparable to COLA rate. The sheriff, when I look back here at how many increases the sheriff has had, recommended 7, got 5, recommended, the different percents. Every time the sheriff is up there for being out of line. State law says this is the year to put the sheriff in line. The comp board perhaps should have assumed, which I don't believe they did, that the sheriff would get what they recommended. So I think the others perhaps are inflated, they're below, and that's what we're dealing with. I don't know how they could think that the supervisors deserve a 12% raise without even discussing it among the board. It was never even talked about, nor was the treasurer, nor was the recorder. The 3 numbers that they picked are the highest were heavily discussed.
Yeah, the numbers are just arbitrarily.
Yeah, I think they assumed, and I think that we, again, I don't know who's gonna be on the comp board next year. We don't know. There's 2 open seats on this board next year. We don't know who's gonna be here, so it's not like we can have an agreement. If we pass this, will you from here on forward give us a realistic number?
Or if we try to split this over a couple, 3 years
We have no-
to get
yeah,
up, we
there's-
have no guarantee
no
who's gonna
guarantee.
be there.
Well,
we don't-
there's never been that guarantee.
No,
I mean,
and we don't know the comp board after this year. The elected officials may have to find new people to represent them. We don't know that.
I mean, one of the comparables they were using for the sheriffs was North Liberty. And you think this 28% high, it was $133,000. That would probably translate closer to a 38% increase. So that's why I say the legislators, I can't blame the comp board. The comp board has done a pretty decent job to give us a tiered system. The legislators have got us trapped in a pickle again. There they are trying to meddle in county business again. They think they're doing the right thing, but they give, and yeah, we can say, you know what, nobody gets anything. And I think that maybe that's what they want.
Well, that is another choice that we could do, but
That
I do
is
not
true,
want,
but-
I do not want to go down that
But
road.
I'll guarantee you, if we do that, half these individuals that are sitting right here in this position today that are elected, come election time, will not be there for the next election. That creates inconsistency. And all we have to sell here is accurate information
And the other thing,
and
you should put
timely
yourself
information.
behind more,
What's that?
and you put yourself behind.
And
more.
you'll be behind the curve more. So
But I'm just looking at from my recommendation, I'm doing what I think is
I know
just common sense.
everybody has a different opinion here of how we move forward. I'm also gonna be a very big, I'll tell you right now, I'm gonna be a big advocate of changing our insurance. Being Clark walked in.
That's nice of you.
I'm gonna be a big advocate of it, because if
We're
we're
gonna go-
going, if we're
we're
gonna
gonna-
chase the public sector, then we're gonna go out there for the public sector, what they do. And they're gonna be a little bit, employees are gonna be a little bit more unhappy with that. Because the public sector out there doesn't give as good insurance as what we have. They're close, but not
Well,
exactly.
I'm gonna go along with you. If we go that 75%.
So, like I said, we owe it to the taxpayer to try to maneuver around the asking for them. If we have to give more here, we've got to find another sources to help reduce that.
Yeah, there's another online comment. Aren't the clerk's salaries determined by the budget of the department? Deputies, yes, not clerks, correct?
Clerks is set by the Board of Supervisors, so you'd be
Percentage.
considered non-elected, non-union.
The deputies are set by the elected officials.
So we're currently still waiting for a motion.
Salary. You wanna table it and go with one
No, I don't
rock, or
think
do you
so.
wanna make a
No.
decision?
We may be closer than you
Yeah,
think. I'm gonna make a
Okay.
motion. I haven't made a motion yet. I'll make a motion to 51%.
There's a
Cut at
motion.
51% or cut at 49%?
Cut it 49%.
Thank you.
I will second that.
Then a motion and a second. I'm gonna call for the vote. Any more discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
All right,
Aye.
Opposed?
I,
Motion denied. I'm going to make a motion for a 65% of the compensation board ask.
I'll second that.
There's been a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
let's see what those figures are first. I would like to know that.
They're right here.
65,
I
don't
just,
have them.
for some reason, mine ain't set up to change.
I'm gonna show them. I guess I could read them off. Did you want me to read them off for you? Did you want me to read off those percentages?
No, I was looking to see what the,
Clark, you sure you don't want to go back to the money?
No, I like it here.
so that's a 35% reduction?
I have good news. So basically, the sheriff's salary would be 18.2%. Good news.
Did you get the figures? I must have to do something on mine to get that changed.
I think you have to log in, so you're probably not being able to edit.
I want to do an update on it.
All right, so there's been a motion and a second. I'm gonna call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion denied. If we can't come to an agreement, I would say within the next 5 minutes, we'll have to table this discussion.
So I assume you're in numbers in the 50s.
I don't know if I'd even. I'm looking at what else that's gonna affect. That's my biggest problem.
Well,
Let's, I'll make another motion. I don't, this is. I had this one turned off, but I don't like to. But I'll go to 52%. I'll make a motion with that. That we get 52% of the recommendation.
All right, there's a motion. Is there a second?
I'm looking.
A little over 14.5 for the sheriff.
And 14.56, that gives them almost 16,000.
16.24 for the lowest ones.
Yep.
I'll second that motion.
so. What percentage was that?
52% of the recommendation.
What's that bring us total to?
Who the sheriff?
Yeah.
106,955.
Almost 107.
All right, there's been a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye.
Aye.
Motion dies.
No, I'm looking at one of the comparables here. Ken, I want to ask you a question. Bornelli, Robert Bornelli, is he still active?
Yeah,
Okay.
lieutenant for the state patrol, he lives in Carroll.
Yeah, just want to make sure he's still active. This list I have, I can't tell whether that's passed or.
No, he's still here.
Maybe one. Okay, here we go. I'll throw out a motion. I'll make a motion for 45% reduction.
So what does that put us at?
Sheriff would be a little over 15.
He'll be in that 108, 85, someplace in there. That puts him pretty close to the comparable I just asked about.
Supervisors and treasurer are low, they would be 6.6.
All right, there's been a motion for a reduction at 45% of the compensation board recommendation. Is there a second?
What's that?
You're just shy of 60. Is that like 50?
55.
55.
I'll second. There's been a motion and a second for a 55% recommendation of the compensation board. Gonna call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Motion dies. I'm gonna throw my hands up. I don't know what to do. Nobody's compromising, so either we come with a compromise or we're gonna table this. And I don't want to table it, but we've got other items on the agenda that we've got to get to.
I don't know that it's gonna even push it off, so do any difference.
Just to give a reference back, we've done 50%, 60, 25, 65, 52, 45,
And you forgot 49.
and 49.
I still feel if we don't bite off a majority, I don't want to say a super majority, but a majority of the chunk of the sheriff's recommendation this time, it's just going to be future boards.
Right back at it again. next
Exactly.
year.
It's going to be future boards deciding the same thing. We don't know who those people will consist of.
Well, that's no different than what it is now. It's always been that way, Scott. I mean, just because you think that this is going to have other thoughts, I mean, it's always been that.
Yeah.
Everybody's always got. So
I've never seen the numbers be double digits for everybody, and some of them are healthy double digits. And I think one could assume the sheriff's was a real number. The rest of them, I'm not so sure were real. I think they were just lumped in as a compromise, like, let's assume the board is gonna cut them in half.
Exactly.
I don't think that's the right assumption. We want any future compensation boards to assume. I think we need real numbers.
But we can have that discussion going forward. That doesn't have nothing to do with what we're doing here right now.
Okay.
I'll make a motion at 53%. That's compromise.
All right, there's been a motion. Is there a second?
That's compromise. Everyone.
What percent will leave the bottom one?
6.36.
6.36. That's getting a little high for me, to be quite honest with you.
We're in order.
I will second that. That's.
All right, there's been a motion and a second. I'm gonna call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion denied.
So is it the low number? Is that where the problem's at?
I think the whole thing is, I think, we all say we got a bad deck of cards.
Yeah.
It's not just a low number, but we gotta take into consideration the top too. I just think we have, and I'm not disagreeing with what anybody has said here. But I think we gotta use some total common sense here.
I don't disagree, but I also know that
Because this is gonna, one of the comments, one of the calls I had really stressed the fact about this being a trickle down thing. And I got it, we actually just heard the yellow was saying
I
about the
understand.
Burger King and the McDonald's flipping hamburgers for $15.
I understand
I
that.
mean, it's a trickle down thing. So whatever we do here is gonna trickle down.
I understand that. But we've also been trickled down on top of by the city of Carroll for many, many
I tend to agree with you
years.
there.
Now, like I said, catch-up time has come.
And let's put it this way, that's my which side of the fence you are, and then when you go on the other side of the fence, then it's the other story.
Exactly.
Well, and
If they want to point their finger at us, and
to be quite honest with you, with the way the city elections went, the catch-up could possibly come from the other side this time.
it could. There's no guarantees about anything.
There isn't.
All I know is that here's the battle I'm struck with is I also know that about 45% of our population out there is on a fixed income. And I understand that very, very well. I also understand that I took an oath to follow the Constitution. That means follow the laws. The Back to Blue law is a law. It's not a recommendation. They would not have passed it to us if they didn't want something done. So there's the rub that I'm at. And that's why I say, that's why I'm holding it a higher percentage.
And I tend to agree with you, but I want to say this, for the back, the blue law doesn't say anything about us.
I get that, but the intent
I know. what the
had to
intent
be
was.
there or they wouldn't have put.
They wouldn't have
passed it.
singled out the sheriffs.
They wouldn't have singled them out if there wasn't an intent.
And I have nothing but good to say about our sheriff. I mean, don't get me wrong.
We've got good elected officials, very good.
Maybe we've been getting a great deal for a long time and haven't appreciated it and
I-
appreciated those positions like we should have.
I think there's something to be said for that also.
Well, let's say a little debate on that, but I'll do that some other time.
I did receive a question. Can you set a percent for salary increases and add a stipend for the sheriff under my, I think the stipends have to be determined at compensation board, correct?
Compensation board has to recommend the stipends.
Stipends.
I think it needs to be a permanent adjustment on a yearly stipend too. I think it needs to be
The increase.
the stipend. It needs to be, yes.
That's why I say I
So
don't,
next year, maybe it could be cost of living only for all elected officials. If this puts them where the comp board feels they should be.
unfortunately, I think we're going to kick it down the road again. That's the only compromise we can is to kick it down the road one more time.
The last one you did was 55%. Right?
Yeah,
I did 53.
I think.
Dean did 53, Rich did 49.
Rich did 49.
Yeah.
No, I only did 55.
Was it 55?
Yeah, I didn't.
Yeah.
I don't like the either, Scott, but I make a recommendation that we go with 54% of the recommended rate from the compensation board.
All right, there's a motion out there for 54% of the recommendation of the compensation board. Is there a second?
I will compromise with a second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Gonna call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I
Opposed?
I,
Aye. Motion carries. All right. Next item up on the agenda is Blue Cross Blue.
Courtney, who we need to send to,
Oh, wait, no, so sorry.
Non-union, non-elected.
Non-union, non-elected. Number 2.
Okay.
All right, we're gonna go to item number 2, fiscal year 2023, non-union, non-elected employee salaries.
So Courtney, is it public what the unions have asked for?
Yes, because you accepted the letter in an open meeting.
So I think the ambulance asked for a 3.7% increase. The secondary roads asked for a 6% increase. If it's a 3-year contract with 5.5 to follow in 24 and 5 in 25. Those have not been negotiated or settled yet. I'm just throwing those out there as a starting point.
What was that again, Scott?
3.7 for the ambulance. There's a little string attached to that also.
Three-year.
Right.
And then the secondary roads were 6, 5.5, and 5. If we enter into the 3-year
Well,
agreement.
according to what we did here, I think for,
Those aren't recommendations. That's not a motion. I'm just throwing that out
Okay,
for
thank you. I
background.
appreciate those numbers.
non-union, I guess I would say that with what we just did, we probably need to go in that 5 to 5.5%.
I agree.
I'm not going to disagree with that.
I'm gonna make a motion right now. That non-union, non-elected employees, 5.5%.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
I will second that.
There's got a motion and a second. Any more discussion? If not, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carries. And that is set at 5.5, correct?
Yeah.
All right. We will be moving forward to Zach Anderson. How long's your quarterly report going to take?
No hurry, 1 minute.
Okay, do your quarterly report. We're gonna go ahead and move item 6 up before Clark.
Everybody got a copy of it, Sonia?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so for the last quarter, we took in $2,728 for mileage, $7,663 in fees, civil papers, a miscellaneous trust, $470, weapons permits, $3,120, $780 weapons permits for the state, and prisoner room and board, $18,725. We ended up taking in $33,487.69 in total receipts. And after the weapons permits were divvied out, the treasurer, that left us a total of $29,593.52.
Ken, what do you see that room and board going up to once we get moved into the new jail?
Not sure.
I mean, 60,000 next quarter.
It's hard to predict. It'll go up some because we have so many sentencing orders of our own to get people in here to serve. But you know, there's always variables, but I would think the room and board should increase dramatically,
Double.
possibly.
Can your mileage income, does that come from mental health calls?
Some from mental health, some from warrant services.
Oh, okay, and then forgot about that part of it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Most of your mental health is being handled by the SNL, isn't it?
Of quite a bit, but we still charge to go pick them up if you have to go out to Coon Rapids and get
But I
some.
mean, as far as long trips.
Long trips, usually the S Center, as long as they're not violent.
Any more questions?
Make a motion to accept the sheriff quarterly report.
I will second that.
Thanks again.
And there's been a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Not, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. All right, Zach, we're gonna skip you. Or is the, how long's your bridge?
It won't take long. I was gonna stick on for Clark's, listen to that anyway. Either way, it's fine. We can do it. Everybody wait. Either way.
You're at Clark. Sorry about running behind on the agenda.
All right.
I'm sure you can make up for it, can't you?
I'm gonna talk as fast as I can.
You're a salesman, aren't you?
Yeah.
That doesn't mean free lunch.
Oh,
Should.
how's Clark been?
I've been doing good, how are you?
Well, we're doing okay.
I have good news. We're actually
Oh,
gonna
I'm
get,
ready for some good.
we're actually gonna get a little reduction in our suggested rates.
Perfect.
I don't have my regular binder. Just want to let you know that I'm only in the office one day a week and half of my colleagues still don't go to the office. That's gonna change here in the next few weeks.
Where none of you go.
Or what, that could be, but I think they're hopefully by the middle of summer, we're all gonna be back in the office. So I don't have a binder, I have a folder. So grab the stuff on the left-hand side. I did prepare to go through all this stuff. I know Courtney asked me to kind of cut it short. I will talk as fast as you allow me to talk. But this is your meeting, so stop me if you have any questions. We'll highlight the important stuff. And if you have any other questions, I can answer at the end or get back to Courtney with those. So this first report is our aggregate report. So this is how claims are running currently. So this first one is our current time periods. This is our current contract. Yeah, you have 6 months involved, and this will run all the way through 6/30 of 22. You see, you do have some stop loss credits. Not very many, but you have some stop loss credits. So the back part of that first page tells me how you're running as a suggested rate. So that minimum aggregate deductible is our suggested rates. I know your rates are set a little bit lower than that. So that's a little bit different, but when you see there's a surplus, there should be a surplus of 328 from our suggested rate. So I'm guessing Courtney is seeing a surplus to what you're charging as well. Next report is basically last year's contract. So you had quite a few stop loss claims. You had a little over $300,000 of stop loss. So your stop loss paid for itself. You see on the backside of that, you also had a surplus. So you had some large claims, but you had a lot of people that didn't have very many claims. So that number you see there in the surplus is not that high because, like you said, like I said earlier, you don't charge the suggested rates, but you should have seen a pretty good chunk of money going into your account.
For sure.
Okay. The next page is our 2-year cost summary. The reason why I print this off, it just shows you your pharmacy rebates. So you can see your pharmacy rebates. You've had a couple of pretty good sized ones, and you've had the August one is due to a audit that we have with CVS. So if the manufacturer hasn't paid them yet, they're required to pay us. So that number is a little bit higher. So you see 33,000 compared to a standard of $13,000 or $14,000 a month. The next page is next couple of pages is the front and back is our 50% report. So this is that same contract period. I took the names off of, I don't think any of them had the names on there. But it does show you that anybody that's over 50,000 or at least 50% of 50,000. So you had a few there, and then currently you have just a handful of people that are over 50,000. But again, you're only talking about 6 months. Next, we'll talk about the annual report. This is the report that I go through every year. There's Carroll County on the front. This is our renewal period for underwriting. So a little bit different than those contract periods. That's July through July. This is November through October, paid through November. So this is where underwriting looks at the same time period every month. or every year, excuse me. On the second page, the benchmark is our book of business with the counties. So we do have quite a few counties, so we're comparing you to other counties. Page 3 just shows you a variance from one year to the next. Last year was kind of unusual, so that's kind of it shows you have quite a bit of an increase in trend, but that's still low because last year was really low. So let's go to page 4, flip that over. So you see the total amount paid is a little over 1.7 million. A little bit higher on both the medical as well as the RX. But when you look back a couple of years prior, we're still lower than that. You look down at the bottom of the page, you can see that employees are down a little bit from last year. So is membership, about 10 members and about 6 employees. That number seems correct, Courtney?
Yes.
Okay. The next page just kind of shows you a little bit regarding your enrollment analysis. So again, the average number of employees and members, you look at the bottom of the page, it splits it out between males and females. A few more males and females on the employee side, about 54% to 46%. Gets closer to 50-50 when you throw in all the kids and all the dependents. The next page shows you enrollment analysis regarding what age bands they're in. You can see you got lots of kids. You guys contribute, help out with the family contribution, so you end up getting more kids than most of my other groups. So you do have quite a few kids. You do have quite a few that are over age 65 as well. You have 14 that are over age 65 that are on your plan. A lot of a lot of family contracts. There's only 36% of them are single. The rest of them either have a spouse or some children or both. Page 7 talks about our network. You've saved almost 42% of charges because of our contracts with our providers. So $1.2 million you saved. This page 7. It also talks about in-network and versus out-of-network. You just had a handful of claims that were out of network. So less than $10,000 in that box on the right, but 97% of all the claim dollars went through the network. So see the savings. Page 8 is always interesting to look at. And it's really, really low this year. You look at the top row, 3.9% of your members use 0 claim dollars. So 13 people had 0 claim dollars. And that average is about 10% of the groups. So very, very good. We actually like people that actually use the claim dollars because there's a lot of preventative stuff out there that's free. You also, I draw a line at the $1,000 mark. 175 members or 52% of your group use less than $1,000. And I draw another line at the $2,500. 72.7% of the group use less than $2,500. So no different than the other group that I have. Yours might be a little bit higher, but 27% of your group use almost 90% of your claim dollars. Usually I see about 20 and 80. It's very similar to other groups that I have. Page 9 just shows you the numbers instead of the percentages. Let's go to page 12, a couple pages forward. So we looked at how many people that are, we looked at all the kids that are on your plan, but then you have 14 that are over age 65. The over age 65 is using the most majority of your claim dollars. That's typical for a lot of groups that have a lot of 65 and older people. Also, you have the next is the 56 to 64. We'll talk about that here in just a second. Let's go forward to page 14. So you look at those same age groups. You see that 56 to 64, we see lots of bones, muscles, and ligaments. That's what happens. I mean, my knees are telling me some things too, but you also see some cancers. So we have a cancer ongoing at 54 to 64 range. The highlighted one on the bottom is a COVID case. We'll go forward to inpatient. Just kind of look at, let's just go to page 17. So it shows me that you're inpatient, and you can see at the bottom of that page that the virus caused the majority of that. There is some drug dependency that's on there as well. There's also some injuries and poisonings. And the cancers are a little bit lower on the inpatient side, which is good. Next page, page 18 is the ER visits. So you can see we're just up slightly from last year. Last year, you're just under 27,000. This year, you're a little over 27,000. Still doing very well. 30 visits. You had 27 last year. You can see the diagnosis categories over on the bottom right. So there was some injuries and some regular heartbeats. But not bad. Go to inpatient stay, I go forward to page 21. Excuse me, outpatient analysis. So there is a little bit on the cancers, and there also is on the heart and vessels. But I see a little bit on the skin and hair, a little bit on the nerves and eyes, but nothing that makes anybody excited or gets anybody scared. Next thing I want to bring to your attention is page 24. We're looking at the office visits. This is where you can see a little bit of a discrepancy between the PCP and non-PCP. So this is on page 24. So the average cost paid per visit for a family doctor, a PCP, is a little less than $150. So then if you go to a specialist, you go to the heart doctor, you go to a cancer doctor, you go to a specialist, it's almost $500 per visit. You do have some chiropractors on there. You do have access to telehealth, but very few, nobody's used Doctors on Demand this year. We'll look at the report here just a second. Page 26, top providers. The majority of them go to the hospital right here in Carroll. You get 75 claimants right here in Carroll. You do not see Mayo Clinic. You do on the top, top practitioners, you do see there's a couple life flights. The next page, on page 27, we'll talk about, again, stop me if you have questions. Otherwise, if you have questions later, talk to Courtney and I'll get you the answers, okay?
I like the pace you're going.
What's that?
I like the pace you're going.
Okay, good. I'll keep going then. The pharmacy analysis, very similar, a little bit higher. It's kind of hard to go down on pharmacy. You went down a couple of years, and then you're back up a little bit. I'm on page 27. So you're at just a little less than $230,000 with a pharmacy. The line that I highlighted below that, the paid per prescription, is the nice one. It's under $100. So you were over $100 a few years ago. Now you're just a little under 80. You look down below that, it's specialty medications. You do have a couple specialty medications. The average is $1,300. You can see where it was a couple of years ago, it was over $5,000. The analysis on the next page talks about the number of prescriptions. The number of prescriptions has stayed pretty consistent the last couple of years. You see the generic prescription percentage is down. It was in the 90th percentile. Now it's at the 84 or 85 percentile, which is a little bit less than our block of business. So 29 gives you a little bit more of a snapshot of your top 20 drugs. So I have a couple notes on here. I looked a couple of them up. The first one is we've had them on this last couple of years. There's a HIV medication. There's a blood thinner. There's a specialty medication for eczema. Another HIV medication. The ones that are highlighted, besides the one on the bottom there, are diabetic medications. With the ages of your group, you probably have, it always happens where you have diabetic medications. You do have a specialty medication that's for migraines. But the bottom one there that's highlighted is the COVID medication. So all the shots that were administered, you were charged for that. So that made the list. You weren't charged for the medication, you're just charged for the application of the shot. So that's the annual report. Lots of information in a short amount of time. Let's go to the Doctors on Demand page, which is this one. couple pages forward. You get a report because you have a couple people that are registered. I don't know if Courtney's one of those.
Was.
I think you probably still are, is why you're getting one, because I told you last time, if we didn't have anybody registered, I didn't get a report. So if nobody's using it, it's available to them at a lower cost share. So that's just something maybe we should send out some things. The next report is our Covet Impact. So this is a report that shows everything all the way back to the beginning of February of 20, the beginning of the crisis. Going all the way up through, this is settled through 12/31. So you can see you've paid a total of $242,196 for COVID. A lot of vaccinations. You've had just the treatment. You've had quite a bit of treatment paid. You've had a lot of testing.
So that COVID, that includes private doctor's visits and everything?
That's everything, yes.
That's not just, okay.
Well, at the beginning, they had no cost share whatsoever, even for their hospitalizations. And then that all kind of went away and it just kind of ran to the plan, but that's the COVID, yes. So the next page, flip that over, it kind of talks about the vaccines and all of them that happened at certain months. These are the ones that went through the plan. I'm sure there's some that went through a free clinic or a county thing or state sponsored something that didn't get tracked to the plan. So there's other people that have gotten vaccines too. The next one is,
So when we show our insurance card, when we're getting the free shot,
that should run through here, yes.
$242,000 worth?
Well, no. The
That was-
shots are $40 a piece.
Okay, thank you.
This next page shows you where most of it is treatment. So there was a.
Same right here, right?
Yeah. Yes,
So I mean, your vaccinations was 83.
that's correct, right.
But the treatment was 216,000.
Right, and it was, you look at the next page, doesn't have a number on it, but it says treatment on it. And you can see the little circle over on the left, 76% of all those dollars went to inpatient.
So we only had 1.26 people diagnosed. Is that what that's saying?
Per thousand, so
Per
yes. You've had a lot diagnosed. You've said one, like a couple inpatient stays, or it was one that kind of transferred over to the other. But the majority of it was in December. And you can see the numbers are really small when you're going out, and that could be, a doctor's visit or getting tested or all of those kind of things. So you can see the tests there on the next page.
So did you say that? What would you say about December?
December was a hospitalization,
Right
yes. I didn't call one. Yeah, it was $100,000. We'll talk about that here again in just a minute. All right. Then it talks about the testing, where they did all the tests that are taking place. Also, it talks about telehealth, even though you're not using doctors on demand, all of the other clinics and stuff are still doing, there they were for a long time, are doing the virtual visits, yes,
Do you have information about doctors on demand that we can use as a payroll stuff?
absolutely. Yep, I can get that. to
See
you.
if we can kind of get that.
Just remind
Ball
people that
rolling
this
down.
is available to them, yes,
Thank you.
yep. So yeah, the health systems are using quite a bit of telehealth, and it's probably gonna keep going. But they definitely were utilizing it. So keep in mind, when you do a health system, same copay is what you have going to the doctor, and they get the same rate. So we have to pay them, if it's $147, we pay them $147. If you go to doctors on demand, it's $60. It costs them $20 copay, $60 total, so you pay $40, they pay $20. Or they go to the Farland Clinic, it's $20 and could be $130. So it helps everybody by doing doctors on demand if you can do it.
Going back a little bit, any changes in allowing Medicare, Medicaid for us to jump on that? Where I'm headed is, I'm 66, coming up on 66. Can I go to Medicare, Medicaid and the county pay for a great plan and take me off of insurance. Is there any changes in that law?
No, the only ones that can do that, I have another group that's a family owned and they're still on the plan and they don't work. Well, you guys are still getting your hours in, so you're still eligible for the active plan. Because once you take them off the active plan, if they're still eligible, Medicare doesn't like that. They're gonna knock on your door and say, no, you don't want to mess with Medicare.
Just,
Yeah.
it makes perfect sense
Yes.
to buy a
Right,
premium plan from you and
Right.
save the county money.
There's a couple of us that could show in that category.
yeah.
I'm one.
Well, just keep in mind, I've set up a couple of Medicare plans. We could set up a Medicare, an employer-sponsored Medicare plan. Would just be the program F, it'd be the supplement. But you don't realize all the extra costs that are in Medicare. I mean, Part A is free, Part B is not free,
Right.
Part D is not free. And then there's a cost to the program F too. So we can set it up where you can offer it to people that retire that are no longer active. And we can direct bill all those kind of things, because I'm probably, Courtney, when see people retire, they're probably like, what do I do now? And you got to kind of lead them in a certain direction.
Depends on how old they are.
You're right. So, yeah, good question. Okay, let's go to the right-hand side of the page. Or the folder. Talk about large claims. So this is the same time period. This is that November through October. So you can see that that first one was the COVID, and that person is no longer on the plan. It was a spouse. There's also an employee, and that no longer on the plan, that was having some issues with cancer. There is a couple of dependents that are on here that are taking some medications that they're expecting to be on this list again. This is a list of claims that are over 10,000. So there is one child that's under 4 that's expected to be on here as well, and that's between $50,000 and $100,000 with the RX cost. And then a couple other ones that are going to be on here as well that are going to be between 50 and 25,000. But nothing substantial. It's got underwriting concern. But there's a lot of claims on this list. They anticipate, underwriting anticipates to have 24 claims on this list that are over 10,000. You currently have 37. Last year you had 39. They do expect to have 4 claims that are over 50,000. This year you have 6. Last year you had 3.
Where are you at there?
These are all my notes that I did not transfer over. I'm just telling you on this list, you currently have 37 on this list, and we anticipate only having 24. So you have a little bit more than we anticipate, but when it comes to large claims, you're not too bad. Next report, I just pulled this. This is our Blue Insights large claim. This is just for this year. So it just tells you this happened. A lot of these were happening so far this year, or excuse me, in 21. Because the other one was back in November and December of 20. So you can see that it's the COVID one. It's no longer on the plan, and you have the cancer one. I pulled this just in case there is something that's just starting and we don't know about. If we had a large stop loss increase, or we had an increase in our expected claims, we don't have that. So that is just for your information. So let's go forward past that report. We'll go to the renewal itself, which looks like this. So this basically, they just throw these numbers in here to kind of compare one year to the next. So like I said, enrollment's down just slightly. Claims are up, but again, claims were really low last year. Most of my groups were. Go to the spreadsheet. It says renewal worksheet. This will just kind of show us where we were a couple years ago, last year, and where we're going. So lives, employees, we're at 115. Go down to that first highlight. It's the stop loss. Stop loss has been going up for everybody. Our stop loss trend is running about 18 or 19%. Our medical trend is running about 8.5%. Stop loss has been a little bit higher just because that fixed number of 50,000 is getting easier and easier to get to every year. So you're getting a 10.37% increase in stop loss, which is lower than our train number. That means you're having a better year than most. So you're going from $324.55 to $358.20. We'll look at those numbers here in just a second. We'll look at the rate page. The aggregate is staying the same. Admin costs is going up. If you guys are in with the rest of our groups that are under 250 lives, everybody pays the same rate. Network access fee has actually gone down. It was at 1107. It's going to 1080. So we look at see how you guys have, most of them are in network. Last year, a couple of years ago, we had some out of network, but you're running, most of them are in the network right now. So some notes, some highlights on the bottom. We're currently running at 74% of actual to expected. So what we expect from claims, you're running at 74%. So that's running really well. So we're actually going to reduce your expected claims 3%. So that's the big number of the whole thing is expected claims. We're reducing that 3%. Stop loss, like I said, is going up 10.37%. So overall suggested rates are actually going down almost 1/3%, so 0.29%. So I would suggest that you probably just stay right where you're at. That's what I would do. Yeah, makes it easier for everybody. So the next pages are actually our rate pages. So let's look at that. It might be upside down. Mine is upside down. Yours might be upside down too. So the first page is the $750 plan, which is the majority of the people. You see, you got 99 people that are currently on this plan. So you can see the $50,000 stop loss in the middle of the page is the $358.20 per member. And you have the $839 for the aggregate, and you have the admin fees and the PBM, which hasn't changed either, it's still $1.10. Those are your suggested rates. So expected claims had gone down, admin fees have gone up just slightly, but overall it's a little less than the 0.3% decrease. You can see the next page is the $1,500 plan. You have 16 people that are on that plan. And we currently have nobody that's on the high deductible health plan. They've gotten too old, can't contribute anymore. He's not listening.
I'm listening.
I did do a couple other things here. Let's go to this page. Just a couple pages in. This is your current plan designs. So that's the $750 plan and the $1,500 plan. There's a couple of things that maybe you might want to look at. And the one thing would be is the office visit copay. Majority of the groups now have a differential between the family doctor and the specialist. You guys do not. You have a $20 for anywhere you go. So you go to the cancer doctor or you go to Doctors on Demand, it's $20. So I would suggest maybe raising that. And most people, when they go to a specialist, know that they probably should pay a little bit more. So maybe raising it to 30 or 40 bucks. So instead of a $20, it'd be $40 if you went to the cancer doctor. The 1 year, you get one time a year, I go to the dermatologist, I just expect to pay 50 bucks. That's what I pay. It's not going to stop you from going to the cancer doctor or the heart doctor. But you don't want them to go there for, I got the sniffles. Otherwise, your drug plan, I highlighted those. We implemented a tier 4 copay a couple of years ago. I think it's doing the trick. I don't think there's anything to do there. And then the specialty copays, some groups have raised those up a little bit, but that's up to you. Now, keep in mind with the specialty copays, there's 2 people that are on specialty. They're probably getting some of that cost or all of that cost taken care of by a manufacturer rebate. So if we raise that to 150 and 300, they're still going to get that cost done. Just saves the plan 50 bucks. And again, you're impacting 2 people today. That's totally up to you guys. I just want to bring that as a suggestion. The next page is stop loss options. So I know we had a stop loss increase. So this is going to 60,000. So if you went from 50 to 60,000, your rate goes down to $300.20. So I think I left the notes on the bottom down there. So you look at your $50,000 premium is just shy of 500,000 or 494,491. And the $60,000 would actually be an $80,000 savings in premium. Now, keep in mind, you have to pay $10,000 more for those large claims. So when I looked at this, you had 3 claims last year. You had 3 claims that are over 50,000. So that would be still a $50,000 savings. Now, let me just look back here. So that just kind of tells me that if you have 8 claims that are over 50,000, you would lose. So if you're under 8 claims, then you would win. This is kind of the gamble piece of it. It's the insurance piece of it. You currently have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people that are over 50,000. So you're at 5 claims over 50,000, and you'd have to pay 60,000 instead of, we would reimburse you at 60,000 instead of 50. That's up to you. It's an option. I also ran a couple pages back. I also ran at 75,000. So same premium for the 50,000, 75,000, it's 164,000, almost $165,000 in premium savings.
That's only 3 claims.
Well, that's 3 claims right now. If you did it a year ago for this current contract, you would have saved 119,000. But now you have 5 claims that you'd still be paying on until we give you credit, because there's nobody's over. You just don't know all of a sudden one of the whole key is not that you have a big claim. This is if you have a lot of big claims, then you lose.
Our track record is showing.
Yeah, you're right.
But.
Yeah, because
we do. That's.
well, I mean, you're gonna have a cancer here or there, or we've had the baby in the past and those kind of things that cost. But in the past, this year you currently have 6, and you had 3 last year, and you had 5 the year before. So that track record shows you would have won. But again, crystal ball time. But that's an option for you. You can save a little bit more premium dollars. But right now you're running well, and you're actually going to be able to keep it the same, if not lower just slightly if you wanted to.
That's going to 60.
No, I'm just saying if we just stay right where we are right now,
Yeah. But I mean, if you went to 60.
If you went to 60, you can actually lower a little bit. Now, keep in mind, when you're talking about stop loss, here's your premium. Claims is this, stop loss is a small piece of the pie.
Right.
So you may be able to, get another 0.5% of your total suggested rate. So you got a 10% increase in your stop loss rates, and you got a total of a negative number for your total rate just because claims went down 3%. Questions? How'd I do? Did you do all right?
That was perfect. That was good.
Now you can go back and negotiate the roads and bridges and all that other good stuff.
Does anybody have any more questions?
Now, keep in mind, final numbers. So if we do get a large claim happening and we get a cancer that we know, or a new baby that happens, your stop loss, these are initial stop loss rates. So in April, we'll have final stop loss. Yes. But right now, we don't see anything happening. It's not turning right off.
Thanks, Clark.
You're welcome. Lorraine knows how to get hold of me.
we your only stop or have a place to go after this?
Huh?
Are we your only stop?
You're my only stop today. Actually, I gotta swing by the part owner of my grandmother's farm that passed. It's in Exira. They had tornado damage at the farm.
Oh, my goodness.
So I gotta swing by there and see what it looks like. See how many trees we gotta take down or remove or. Never fun.
No.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is approved contract for Cunningham Reese LLC BROS SWAP C 014 Southeast 14. No. He was laughing because I was reading off.
She's read all the detail. I was gonna make her do it once more.
I didn't hear that.
Repeat.
So the contractor did go in last week and signed the contract, signed the performance payment bond, and provided their certificate of liability insurance through Doc Express. So they've done their part, basically. Everything looks in order for us to move on and approve the contract on our end, and then we're able to go from there. So we've talked about this project a couple different times. I don't know if there's any questions regarding it. We can answer those, but otherwise, it's really moving forward, approving the contract.
Any questions?
Did anybody talk about doing some way to bypass?
We will, once we can talk with the contractor. We can't really talk with him until after the contract's signed. Once that happens, we'll find out exactly when he wants to get started and then trying to work with the contractor to make that happen. I'm hopeful that will be able to happen, especially depending on timeline of when they want to start.
I will make a motion that we authorize approve the contract.
There's been a motion. Is there a second?
I'll say.
There's been a motion and a second. Any more discussion? We'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Go.
Just, Opposed? Motion carries.
Zach, give me approximate directions on that again.
It's on 280th Street, it'd be northeast of Templeton. It's north, was it 2 miles, Gene?
Yeah, you go from the railroad tracks on the east side of town, go 2 miles north and back east of, approximately 3/8 of a mile.
And I did put it on paper radio last week.
Okay.
All right.
Jared, Nathan did call me too and wanted to verify location, so
Okay.
that's all I have, unless you have anything else for me.
No, thanks, Zach. All right. Next item on the agenda, we'll approve payables. Everybody, I think, got those in advance. I had a few questions, but I did talk to Courtney and Dean.
I had a couple questions too, but there was landscaping in there for the jail. And I think there's also part in the contract, so I don't know whether that is just dirt work on the contract, and I want to get some clarification on that. But I mean,
I looked at the invoice and it's not clear exactly what that is.
I mean, and it shows, and when I went back to the last payable, from last, we had the baiting, that their landscape was paid, so. I'm assuming, assuming is a bad word to use, but I'm assuming that baiting's probably was dirt work and that kind of stuff, and I think sod, and I'm not so sure that when we change that out here, that rock, the rock is part of it.
$12,000 worth of rock.
Well, rock and I think some sod and all that. I mean, I think that, but I think baiting is just basically dirt, I think. But I'm gonna get clarification on that.
But shouldn't that be? I mean, this is not a. It's not a budgeted item. I mean, shouldn't this be part of the bond proceeds that pay for this? Otherwise, I think he needs to come before the board and get it approved. That's a significant amount of money. You know, when you're,
Well, I think it's probably within his budget. to do
well,
this.
yeah, I know, but I mean, it's within his budget, but where is it within his budget? I mean, we looked at that, Courtney, and you said he had $5,000 and where he was taking the money out of. He doesn't even have enough money in that line to pay for this.
All I seen was, I just seen the claim, I was questioning why he was paying it.
We always have money and I have, you know, we don't even, we have a little bit more than half of the year gone. He's determining that he has money in his budget that he can pay for that. What does that tell me? That tells me that there's some padding going on there, that if he can afford to do this, I don't know. I hope we look at budgets a lot closer this year. Because I don't know where people come up with, I have it in my budget to pay for that expense. That's not in his budget. I mean,
I was just questioning why it wasn't part of the contract. And I know we changed that out there in front. with
But do we hold off paying it until we get some answers?
I would like some answers.
Either from Sheriff Pingree.
Well, I think the main thing we need to know is why is he paying for it out of the jail budget and not the capital project budget that we're paying for everything else out of?
Exactly.
If there's no explanation, great, but
So can we hold off on that one?
we'll probably cut the check and hold the check until we get some clarification. And if it needs to come out of a different ledger fund, we'll just do a journal entry to move that around. That's not a big deal.
I'm okay with that.
You can do it on a ledger entry.
Yeah,
And then have either Pingree or somebody explain it to us next week?
He did send me a copy of it. It came with 2 invoices. Part of it was sodding and seeding. And the other one was, that don't make sense. What the heck is that? All right, let's just, yeah. I'm good with that table or cut the check to the next division.
we'll cut the check, but we're not gonna mail it until we get answers. Something, we hear something in my office. Whether it's from you guys or them, I don't care.
All right, we're in order for a motion for the payrolls.
The other question I had was on secondary roads, there's repair bills up for Trail Bridge. He said that that's conservation's reimbursement for that, so.
Any other question? I'll make a motion to approve the today.
Got a motion, is there a second?
I'll second that.
A motion and a second, any more discussion? If not, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Plats, we have 2 plats that I think everybody got. One for Deanna Schessler and Dan Fernending. Do you want to do these individually or something?
They can be done together.
Make a motion to approve flats for today. Both of them, 2 flats.
There's been a motion. Is there a second?
I will second that.
There's a second. Any more discussion? We'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Alright. Next up, treasurer, did you want to explain these or just kind of go through the? So we have approved depository resolution. This is just stating the banks and the maximum balance effective under the resolution. It's 7 different banks. Should probably do these individually. Any?
We do it yearly.
The 2 items she has on here that she does yearly. No, biannually for the other one. This one's yearly, correct?
Yeah, every 2 years on the other one. Yeah.
Any questions on the resolution naming depositories?
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution of setting up the depository resolution.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Roll call?
Osman,
Yes.
Ruggles,
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Miners,
Yes,
Shetler.
Yes,
The motion carries. There is a place there for you to sign.
Next item is approve investment policy.
I'll make a motion to approve the investment policy. There was no change in the
I was gonna say, has there been any changes?
Just the date.
Just the date.
I thought, when I read it, I thought it looked like a thing.
I will second.
All right, there's been a motion and a second. Any more discussion? I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you.
All right, next item is appropriation resolution.
Okay, this is just to appropriate the remaining 15% of the fiscal 22 budget.
Is there a specific date that we have to have this done by?
What I do is I usually look at the budget and see where things are at and see if anybody's really close to that 15%. Thing is we run into like our nonprofits. We pay them half. We've already paid them the first half and we're paying them the second half. Then they're already at 100% of their budget. So there's a few things that spend every dime every year. So that's what I usually look at. We usually try to do it in December or January because that's when we make those second half payments.
It's just, it's kind of more of a formality than anything. I mean, it's a way we can kind of hold 15% back. Can we select out certain departments? You can't.
I don't know how you would do that.
So you'd have to do it in the budget process.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this has no.
That's okay. Let's go that way. I'll make a motion to approve the appropriation of 15%.
I would be glad to second that.
Well, I guess, Gene and I have been involved in that, where this board reduced it to 9% in the past. And you kept,
Were you held 9?
yeah,
Not
No.
appropriation. Really.
yeah, we did.
I don't think we ever had. We did this 15%. I don't think it's ever been reduced.
Oh,
I
yeah.
was thinking the one year they withheld 1% or 2%. And then like at the end of the year, then let the other.
Yep, and then,
The problem we
Yeah.
run into is we have certain function areas in our budget that are nonprofits that they do spend 100% of their budget because that's what the board approved. So, and you can't pick and choose, well, I'm not gonna let roads have 100% of their budget, but I'm gonna let the general fund do it.
So that's why
It's all
I'm
or
saying you
none,
gotta
you
almost do it during the budget process.
You do. If you know there's certain departments that you look at, and I think last year when we got done with our year, I sent you all a thing that showed how much everybody had left in their budgets that they didn't spend. And I remember putting on there, this would be useful
Mhm.
at budget time, because then you know, and there may be certain
I think I kept
reasons.
that, but I don't know if I know what's.
Yeah. and
I
there
know
might
right
be-
where it's at, I put it in, I can
Yeah.
send it.
And there might be logical explanations as to why a department might have $10,000 left in their budget. Maybe they hired somebody with the idea that they take a family and they only took a single, policy for like health insurance. Or maybe somebody quit in the middle of the year that was been here 20 years. So
And you take his department,
his is,
projects are, you don't know where you're gonna be at with them.
well, and it's very hard to look at his budget and figure out why he didn't spend what he spent. You almost have to ask, because it doesn't
It's
break it
just
down
he's
that
just a
detail.
complicated person.
Mhm.
Yes. So,
That's not what I call
yeah, I would definitely use that report.
Made a motion.
It's been motioned and seconded, Scott seconded. Any more discussion? All those in favor signify, no, roll call,
Yeah, Hussman,
yes.
Ruggles,
it. Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Miners,
Yes,
Chapman.
Yes.
Hey, motion carries. I'll pass this around for
I even
signature.
highlighted it so I wouldn't forget.
I know, it's hard to
Well, that was, I remember that specifically that happened.
yeah, I guess.
I was thinking like we only did 14%. And
I
then it
think we
came.
did 9%. I remember that, and we caught a lot of heat from
Yeah, well,
some certain
but
individuals.
didn't you give out the remaining like
Yeah.
in May or June?
Yeah.
Okay, that's
We
what I
gave
was-
the balance out of it, towards, closer to the end of the budget time. Yeah, I remember that. I mean, that's, I'm just bringing up that is an option that can be used.
All right, item number 10, manure management annual updates. We have A from Bill Smith, section 4, Sheraton Township added acres. B, Pig Palace, section 13, Jasper Township, updated soil samples and P index.
I could have.
C, 286 finisher, section 5, Glidden Township, no change. There are 2 committee reports. I can go. Last week, I had the newspaper and radio. I took quite a few phone calls and emails in regards to our salary discussion for elected officials. We did Zach's pre-budget for secondary roads this week. We do pre-budget, Dean and I do pre-budget tomorrow for Ashton and Lisa. And that is it.
I can go next. Last week, Stephanie and I talked with Jamie,
Oh, yes,
but we need to reschedule that for tomorrow, correct?
yeah.
This week, Wednesday, I have the executive committee for the solid waste and the annual solid waste meeting. I have decategorization on Thursday. It's city council meeting tonight, and hopefully Rich and I can get together with the county attorney on budget. Gene and I can do Veterans Affairs, and Dean and I can do home health.
Home care aides.
And I'm free, so for any of those meetings.
I can go next. Last week I had CADC, and basically that once had CADC, Mike, Secretary of Ag, State Secretary of Ag, Mike Naig was there and discussed things with us. As far as this week, I am pretty well open, and I'm hoping to schedule some more budget meetings. And also last week I did the secondary road pre-budget for Stephanie.
I can go next. Last week, we had a conference Zoom meeting with the Stevens Group and Becky and myself, and just got an update as far as how they're coming along with that, and they're running into some obstacles as far as cooperation from one department. I'm gonna say not one department, but one entity. And it probably won't get any better than going on than what it is
As
right
far
now.
as transparency, or can you say what?
And they're looking, but otherwise, I think they've had very good luck going forward in getting information, and they're just going to assume from at some point in time, some of the things that they really need accurate data on. So they're going to make assumptions for those. But they're going to be setting up a meeting. They will be coming out here, Richard and John will be coming out to make the delivery of their report. And I think what they would like to have is a slot of time where they could get the Board of Health and the Board of Supervisors together and deliver it all at one time. And not at a board meeting here, but I have a special meeting to do that. And, probably do it in a place where there's going to be ample space. Because I think there's going to be some attendance at that presentation. So that's going forward. This week I've got a conservation board meeting tomorrow night, and we have the treasurer and the recorder pre-budget meetings tomorrow with Stephanie. I'd like to do the rest of them this week, the conservation board, public, the home care aides, and Rich and I did a little bit of a preliminary pre-budget meeting after our meeting here last week with environmental health. Carrie's going to be out of the office here, I believe, for a while. And so we did touch base with her. She gave us some rude, rough numbers, I guess you'd have to say, Rich, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and one of them that's kind of an ongoing thing is the Crawford County Sheriff. That could change. So, yeah, they are kind of rough. So right now.
Yeah, I mean.
But they're pretty close, I think.
Yeah, I think we're pretty close, and you know, I that's kind of a, I don't know if we want to evaluate, you know,
It was an
discuss
eye-opening
that or
hearing.
not, but
Yeah,
do we? I mean, you know, they're in arrears to the county, Carroll County.
Yeah.
And it's almost getting to be a significant amount of money, and about the only way that you can get over that is to confront them with it.
it's been a give or take for many, many years. We'd be ahead, they'd be ahead, we'd be ahead, they'd be ahead. They've been behind now, so we're gonna have to address it.
3 consecutive years.
Is this
Yeah.
because of, you mean paying us or
Just, we're
Well-
spending more money than they're paying us.
based on our contract? So we need to.
Yeah,
revise
we
it.
need to
increase the
revisit.
contract.
Yeah,
visit the
okay, that's what I
contract.
wanted to make sure.
Where that will go, I don't know, because as Dean and I were looking at it, it's 48,000. We're getting close to, well, the total there is 48, so they're getting close to, maybe they can afford to do it themselves. And I
Is
don't
there
know where.
pushback from that? Or are they just
No,
not
no,
aware of it?
Carrie's gonna have to have the, she has to go over and report to their board
Okay.
where they're at. And when she does that, she'll make that presentation then. Dean and I think that there's a COVID related tie here, so they may be able to use some COVID money to catch up.
I was just thinking of the ambulance agreement we're thinking of signing as far as.
Yeah,
if there was
yeah.
something bad.
Yeah, she's gonna have to have that discussion with their board of supervisors and determine, you know, I mean, first of all, we gotta be able to catch back up. You know, and that basically just.
Yeah.
They write us a check, and then we address the contract.
Yeah.
So, anyway, I think, yeah, that's, so I don't know, that would be the other thing that. Yeah, so I have conservation, Rich, sometime this week, I'd like to bang that out. Get these pre-budgets done. So, that's it for me.
Okay, last Monday, Dean and I did the P and Z environmental health pre-budget meeting with Carrie. That's all I had last week. Well, I take that back. Last Thursday, I spent some time at Region 12. There is gonna be an opening on the policy council. And I spent some time with Chris and Rick coming up with some options, and we're gonna get a hold of a couple, 3 people to make an appointment there, so. That will be coming up, so I did spend some time with them on Thursday. I have the radio and paper today. I will be out of town on Wednesday all day. And I have a couple of things on Tuesday and Thursday. But I will gladly try to work in some of these budgetary things if we can find some times.
Anything else?
Yes, I would like to, I think on behalf of the board, I think we need to acknowledge Ashton Woodruff. She has graduated from the NACO Leadership Academy. I think it'd be nice to recognize that in our minutes. And we also recognize her up to personal, so.
Stop by and say congratulations. Anything else? If not, we're.
Well, we did, Rich, did you see we got an update?
Just got it.
She must
Ben, is
have
there anything online?
been, she must have been watching.
Carrie
this.
must be online.
No more online comments, no.
All right, thank you.
So Carrie did, the current contract is 29,000. I did request an additional 5,000 for the contract. So there you go.
Courtney,
Yes,
what do we got going on this?
That's up
I
to
don't have
me.
anything scheduled next week. I don't need.
Yeah, but I think she's on top of it. trying
We'll
to solve it,
canvass
so.
the June 23 election, which is this Saturday from 1 to 5. And I and the recorder will be presenting the proposal we received from COT for digitizing records.
Oh, good thought.
I was gonna say, I hope you guys put that in the budget this year. I was gonna suggest. that.
I don't want it, I think we can cover it under COVID dollars. So we wanted to give you guys what they're saying it's gonna cost. And then you guys can say, well, we're gonna do half of that, or we're only gonna do part of it, or we're gonna do. it
Well,
all.
I think
So,
from what with even our assessment, that shows that that's something that needs to be done.
yes. And my, I don't have it in front of me, but I had them quote the transfer books and board minutes. So those both would be archived. Anyway, that's
With
all.
that,
I
I'll
have.
make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?